Welcome to the Lair, a place where interesting people you may know tell you things you didn't. So grab a chair and your favorite vice and get comfortable. There are no rules in the Lair, but there is Laura Babcock. You know her from TV, and she is not into media monogamy. Let's find out who else is in the Lair.
We're here in the Lair with Baba Booey, Lauren Lieberman. You called yourself Baba Booey, so when people want to call themselves things, I let them. Our peanut galerians are joining us as well. Welcome, the team of One Concept are here. We've also got our producer, Mike, our intrepid photographer, and the subject of great mockery in our last Lair cast with Councillor Jason Farr. But sorry about that. You missed it, Lauren. It was pretty funny. Yeah, well, there are no rules in the Lair, so if a little abuse happens, I plead the fifth. And we have our guest tonight, which is Tara Crugnale.
Crugnale. You gotta roll the R.
Crugnale.
Don't you drink Tim Hortons during their contests?
So which R am I rolling? Off the top?
There's only one R.
Crugnale.
There you go.
Like that?
It took
a little bit of French in that.
Crugnale.
Crugnale. Tara Crugnale.
There you go.
You have to keep your name because, not the least of which is you ran for politics federally. You ran against Andrea Horvath.
Yes.
And there's something to be said to be beat by somebody who's a force of nature like that.
You have to remember in 2004, things weren't looking too good for the Conservatives provincially.
Right.
And I was 28 years old, and I had been working I had worked in the Premier's office in 2001 under Mike Harris. Over the summer, and so I was kind of in tune with what was going on, and Dominic passed away, and so they called an election right away. Come on, a Conservative in Hamilton East. It wasn't even Hamilton East, Stony Creek. It was Hamilton East. Yeah. And I was really gung ho about it. I'm like, oh, absolutely, we're gonna get this done. And the media would be at me going, so. Is this something that you're doing? Are you the sacrificial lamb? Are they giving you something for doing this?
But all young, attractive females who enter politics, they're all sacrificial lambs. Because God forbid we could have our own ability to be
Laura, let
successful.
me tell you, first of all, I was like, no, I've got a chance. I really believed it. I was like, I've got a chance. I'm going to get this done. Number one. Number two, oh, aren't you too young? I'm almost 30, I was like saying, Now I'm like, my God.
Yeah, but
almost 30.
But I gave you mad props at the time because that's ballsy. And I don't mean ballsy in terms of male genitalia, I mean in terms of courage.
I was thrown into it. There was no campaign team, there was no money.
Yeah.
Oh, what street are we gonna hit today? No, we're not looking at the polls from last time. We're like, let's choose this street because it's got a cool name.
So that was your first try. Yeah. What made you run again? More seriously the next time?
Well, absolutely. It took time. What's funny was during that 2004 election, and it was a by-election, John Tory came out to help me.
Oh, heaven help me.
Yeah, that didn't help.
That was the first time.
Did he want you to run on an education reform platform? No, private school funding?
He was just thinking about getting involved, right? He wasn't really involved yet. And regardless of anything that people say, he's a really great man. He really is. He is the greatest premier we
try
never
not to
had.
knock yourself over coughing there, Mike.
Yeah.
He's a great man, probably
he's a great man,
businessman,
but
terrible
politician. Yeah, terrible politician.
Who builds their hill to die on being private school chits or substitutes or whatever the heck you say.
And that's when we get into 2007 in that election, which I don't know. Lauren is now hiding in another corner, but.
Hey, Lauren, why'd you run away when we talked about the Tories going down the toilet?
Get twitchy when we talk about Noreen Virgin.
Yeah, you do. Well, there's good Noreen Virgin stories. So my perspective on that, what little interaction you and I have had over the years, was moderating that debate.
Yes.
Where Noreen Virgin looked into her camera and talked to it, and not the rest of you, to where you were screaming out for it to be sane, where other people were doing whatever they were doing. That was the most bizarre behavior I've ever seen from a candidate. Yeah. And I remember I even said, whoever told this candidate to just look straight into the camera and yap nonstop and disregard everybody else was bad advice. And I remember Andrew Dreschel came up to me and he said, he wanted to do something on it. And I said, well, I'm just the moderator. I'm not going to comment on it any further. I've never seen anything that bizarre. That was a ridiculous way to run a debate.
Well, I mean, Laura, you know how it is, especially as women. It's difficult when you're in a debate with others, men and women, to make yourself heard without sounding, shrill or bitchy or
Yeah,
you're just demanding attention and
Yeah.
you
The peanut
must be
gallery
the
agrees
must
with
be
you.
the time of the month. You're just acting crazy, So it's and then when one woman is doing it to another, it's even
Yeah.
worse because then
Yeah.
you just sound
And
like
it
a band
did-
of harpies.
It did feel like that at times. Like it felt like Noreen, and this was my take as moderator, felt like she was talking to the camera just nonstop, trying to get the airtime, and you were trying to call her out for it. But
Yeah,
you,
I called her the Energizer Bunny.
Yeah,
she
and
kept
you
going and
that's
going
right, and
and
you
going.
were raising your voice.
Yeah.
And it started to get shrill.
Yeah.
And there were other
And you're
people.
like, "Ah."
The winner, I think, wasn't it Paul Miller?
Paul Miller, yeah.
Sitting there, kind of laughing at the whole situation. That's not
Yeah.
why he won, but that was his take in the.
Yeah.
And I just remember the room was hot. The behavior was weird. It didn't feel like a victory for womankind that night.
No, it was very difficult. And, in a debate, you only have a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
And what are you actually going to do to change that? Like, it's a debate. You're supposed to allow for open interaction. You're supposed to allow for it, but when people really take advantage of it, like she did that night, you get nothing done.
How was the rest of the campaign for you?
It was a really good campaign in the beginning. Definitely, we felt like we were on an upsurge. John, come on, look at Dalton McGuinty at that time. Everyone thought that he was going to go down.
Yeah, you seemed to have opportunity. Like,
I did.
it
I
seemed
thought
like you
I
could
thought
win.
I did. We raised a ton of money. We had
your
the
campaign
volunteers. One Lauren Lieberman.
Oh, wait a second. Lauren Lieberman was the campaign.
didn't know that, Laura?
Well, I did. I was just trying to get him back
Oh.
over here. Lauren, come and
Like
have a
Laura's supposed to
seat.
know everything.
Maybe I do. I just pretend I don't.
Yeah.
Have a seat, Lauren.
There really was a chance. There was a chance. Remember, we had
Was it,
Judy
just
Martin.
John, was it just John Tory and his ridiculous platforms, or was it local competition, some operatives stealing signs?
Yes, you may.
It was virtually at a point in time where we couldn't have canvassers at the door. The amount of vitriol that we were, and just the craziness about you from Italians who were going to not vote Liberal out of respect to Bruno and out of love for Tara. We were going to get
My father.
before Larry Diani had his fall from grace. Tara's father, Bruno, and Larry were the 1A, 1B top dog eye ties in town.
Eye ties being Italian.
Well, I didn't say wob.
Lauren.
No,
Come
but
on.
Bruno is a diplomat, a gentleman, and insanely highly respected in that community. That spills off onto Tara in a huge way. It goes without saying that the Italian community is predetermined to vote Liberal.
Right.
We absolutely had a shot, but the separate school supporters, i.e. the Italians in Stony Creek, were insane with misinformation and anger about their tax dollars funding those filthy Muslims. That's their like.
Yeah,
that-
there was a lot going on, and
slamming doors in our faces.
yeah,
It was
and
terrible.
the problem was that if I could get to every door and explain to every person what this policy actually meant, it would take 10 minutes a person. But after that conversation, they said, you know what, I get it, because the policy itself
What's the
was
explain to
convoluted.
people who might not know what you're talking
Oh,
about.
okay, well, faith-based school funding. Should we go into that for a second?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Sure.
So-
can I just say that I never thought, I mean, maybe I'm just completely naive, but what you just said about Muslims, I never thought of the faith-based funding as being anything about that. I never.
Oh,
I
that's
never
all.
thought
That's
it
all.
was-
Well,
I thought it was like. I thought it was like. Yeah, I had no
what it
idea.
actually what it actually was.
I knew it was highly stupid as a platform, but I didn't know it was about that.
Well, I guess it was,
Dollars
yeah.
are going to pay for terrorism schools. Is what
Yeah,
That's what people thought.
That's what people thought.
Okay.
That's what people thought. In reality, if a school was going to get this public money, then all of a sudden they become accountable to the public. They have to open up their doors to the government. The government has to
Standardized
approve.
curriculum.
Yes,
And
they have to approve of the curriculum. So it was actually a good idea because it opened up these doors of schools that wanted the funding. Now, I think that we were talking to some schools in the Jewish community, and they didn't even need the money. They didn't really care much about it. And meanwhile, I think that was part of the conservative plan. Oh, we'll get that community on
I
board.
always thought that it was catering to the Christian community, the people who
didn't
wanted
want
to
to
have private
They
Christian schools.
well, they wouldn't have minded it. They wouldn't have minded it, but at the same time, there were restrictions placed on what was being done. And so when I actually went and explained to people what it was about, yeah, they get it. But could I go to every single house and do that? No.
I ask you this question. I asked Marie Butriani. She was in here
Yeah.
the other day. And she was in a situation not dissimilar from yours, where, I mean, even in her case, she had successfully run in that riding. She'd been a cabinet minister. She goes to run again. And in spite of her political capital or her ability or her ground team or whatever.
That was abysmal.
Yeah, she couldn't, and she made some comments, you know, her take on Ignatieff, and she said one of her lines, you remember, Gabriella, was, you know, I was sick of defending Ignatieff, and so was everybody else. He dragged us all down, essentially. So you were not in a dissimilar position. You were running, you had a campaign manager. For all the fun we make of Lauren Lieberman, he's kind of good at his stagecraft. You guys had some things going on,
Yeah.
and then a
This
massive
was
cataclysmic
the massive,
failure.
yeah, this was the giant event.
It was a
This was
joke.
it. This was it. And once the Liberals were able to turn it around, and they ended up controlling the
yeah.
entire thing.
It was dead from
It
then
was
on.
yeah, like when we have to always answer to something as opposed to creating
But,
what's
you know,
going on.
I don't want to give the Liberals too much credit here. I actually think that John Tory's platform was for such a sliver of his base, and it was so unnecessarily puffed up for a province.
There was
The
no.
Liberals made issue of this.
This was just
But
one
it was
thing
one
on
of
the
his early
campaign.
platform things that came out.
It was one thing though, Laura, and if it had just been allowed to because when I saw it, I didn't give much.
Allowed to be ignored.
Yeah. Well,
But
no,
I mean,
like,
that's
well, you know, I
politics. They're not
saw
gonna
it. I
ignore
saw it, and I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. I get it,
Yeah.
and it's nothing great. Look at all these other things we're doing. At this point, I can't even remember the rest of the platform
But I remember
because that's the only thing that
distinctly, 'cause
sticks
I was
with me.
actually working at the time as a consultant for the Toronto School Board.
Yeah.
So I was in their head offices every day when this Tory platform came out. I'm not going to talk about their reaction to it, but I can tell you my vantage point was I don't get why when there's such an agenda that he needs to have, and when, you know, I think McGuinty was vulnerable. Tory had a lot of chops. He had a lot of goodwill behind him, a lot of visibility, business leader, etc. And he crashed and burned on a policy
Yeah.
platform that was just so narrow.
Now, there are two things there. The first is that he didn't want to back down because he had already said, this is our plan, you know, we're strong, we believe in it, we're sticking to it.
Yeah.
So he made the mistake of sticking to it.
Yeah, once they
Like-
were wounded, he wouldn't back up.
And he needed
Is
to
that
back
a
up.
business arrogance thing? Is that I'm a
It was
successful business
his
person?
people. His people literally
Okay,
didn't
but-
tell him
Okay,
the
but-
numbers.
But, oh, come on, Tara.
No,
He
they-
didn't,
come
you're saying
on.
he didn't know?
Come
John
on.
Well,
Lasseter
they-
running
yeah.
that campaign kept the.
He
whole
kept
thing
the real
going,
numbers
but
away from him.
we're gonna
Okay,
be-
okay.
They kept saying, we'll be okay, this is just a bump.
Back
just
up
just
the
2
freaking
more
train.
days and
I
we'll be
will
okay.
not ever, I don't care what party we're talking about. You guys might think I hate the conservatives, I don't. I will never allow a leader to say it was
Yeah.
his people. You hire those people, you put them in positions of
And it's your
authority,
job at the end of
and
the
if
day.
you can't
It is-
pick
no,
up the
it is your
freaking
job.
newspaper and read what
fair.
every front page is saying your numbers are, you're
But
mental.
Laura, do you remember in the final stretch of that campaign that Tara became a national story for very carefully suggesting that when elected, she would not support that, not because she doesn't support it, but because of all the misinformation around it.
And that was quite a day and a half we had there,
Holy
Lauren.
shitstorm.
Well-
Oh my God.
You guys sound like you loved it.
You know, I think, I don't know, we were yelling at each other that night. I was in tears. You're like, do you want to do this or not?
Why were
You know,
you
you
guys
can't,
fighting?
well, because we had to write that press release.
In the
Oh, because you
the
you were
political
torn
term.
because you had to step away from your leader.
Yes.
And he, as the ultimate strategist that
Well,
he is,
yeah.
was
The
saying
only shot we had.
was saying
And
bail on him.
Lauren
Tara."
said, you realize when you do this, you will never be allowed in a conservative, you know, place ever again. Like,
That's not
you
true.
can't.
To
You
some
guys
extent,
hang-
I've worn it.
You
more
guys
than
hang
Tara
out at
has.
boring conservative parties all the time, from what I hear.
No, but I'm the provincial pariah, not Tara.
Yeah.
That.
Well, you're the one who came up with the idea, but
But
she's
no,
the candidate who
here's how I
supported
sold
it.
Here's how I sold it to Tara. If we don't do this, we're not canvassing anymore. We can go home, save our money,
Yeah.
and.
Yeah, there was no point.
And
come in a
just,
distant
But
third.
okay, so to prove my point, Tara gave the final yes or no, right?
Yes.
Of course.
So and that's why when you tell me John Tory's people were to blame, that's bullshit. You, as a leader, have the ultimate ability to look at the paper. You have the ultimate ability to make decisions. You didn't have to listen to Lauren. You made your own choice.
No, Laura, that's very true. That is very true, but I do feel like they had an excessive amount of influence over what he was doing.
And
But
there's a
that's his
giant
weakness as
difference.
a leader, then.
I was running campaign for Tara to get her elected. I was not paid 6 figures a month as some sort of sycophant to blow smoke up her ass like Tory's gang was.
Yeah.
They were all there for contracts, not for.
But you do sycophancy fairly well
Okay,
on
but
occasion.
that wasn't it though. That was about
That
to get
wasn't
Tara
his
elected.
game.
We
Right.
really did have a shot.
But Tara didn't
And
take it.
after that story broke, because we had been asking the leader for 2 weeks, change your story,
Yeah.
step back from this. Oh yeah, we're going to do it in 2 days. It kept going and going, and we were losing a lot of steam. Nobody wanted to go
I have
canvas.
to drill down on this question, and I did the same with Marie. It's party neutral here. When you have a leader who is literally dying on their little hill, and you have to go to the door and defend them, and they're not listening to your pleas, and I'm sure it wasn't just you, it was every other candidate
yeah.
in the province. How do you do it? How do you, like, I've never
Well,
got that
Laura,
party line thing.
I think Marie showed it when she was at that debate.
Oh, I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah,
remember,
because-
Gabby? I said
yeah.
that she didn't
She
try
wore
that
it.
debate.
She wore
Didn't
it on her. And
Marie did the opposite. She
Yeah.
didn't speak out against Iggy, and she gave up.
No. Well, what I said to Marie was, in that debate, you gave a good opening and a good closer. Because remember, Lauren, you and I were
had no fight.
winging. But I said you had
Yeah,
no
that's
fight. That's
exactly what Laura
exactly what I said.
Yeah.
You didn't defend the party's platforms. You didn't cut. And she said, well, I heard no one wanted me to be negative at the door. And I said, you've always heard that. That's what everybody
Yeah.
says. In the open forum, that's the chance to show whether you believe and you didn't believe, and that was clear.
Marie showed up at that debate with a white flag.
Yeah, I agree. And
Tara never had a white
And
flag.
I challenged her on that. So you didn't do the white flag thing
No,
until
I-
you did the big,
well, no,
what
that
I
wasn't
separate
a white
myself.
flag. That was a
That was your
kamikaze
last-
mission,
yeah.
and I think that kind of saved us at the door at least because people all of a sudden knew who I was.
how pissed off?
I was
But
on
how
I
pissed
was
are
on the
you?
front page of the Spec with a picture. I was in the Toronto Sun. I was in Globe and Mail. I was interviewed, which Tory's team like could have died.
Did you love it?
No, I didn't. No, of course I didn't love it. It was a
Did
terrible.
you love it? Laura
Laura loved it. I didn't, Laura, I didn't love
You're
doing
such a
it,
whore.
but there was a point where I had to save something of this campaign. I had a lot of people that were working with me to
Yeah.
elect me.
And Marie acknowledged that even maybe subconsciously she was saving her reputation, right? Her equity. Because how can you keep swinging for the fences when you know that?
Because he wasn't
When you're
willing
hitting
to stand up for himself, and
Yeah,
it,
she
she
said
just
like he couldn't
Okay, but there's
defend
no
himself.
glory in having your ass handed to you at the door either. So
Yeah.
you can justify Marie's decision or you can justify Tara's. They both have their reasons.
Well, I don't think either one of them it's for me to justify, and I think both were valid given your circumstance. I'm just interested by the parallel that
Yeah.
two different parties, two different levels of experience, both of you being handed a bum deal by your leader midway through the
Yeah.
campaign.
But at the end of the day, Tara, by strengthening her position in the final stretch,
Yeah.
took it away from the Liberals
Yeah.
and gave it to the NDP.
And at the end of the day, in an NDP stronghold like we have, if you're not going to win, fall on your sword and at least make sure the NDP wins instead of the Liberals.
Yeah,
It was
'cause the
supposed to be a
Liberal-
Liberal seat.
Because the Liberals
Yeah.
and the Conservatives, it's a blood match, 100 years old. You're never going to
Well, and
mission
it's not only
accomplished.
that; it's also
Yeah.
the seat count, right?
So you guys felt as though you achieved your goal.
You know, it was
Secondary goal.
expensive.
Tara, I
Goal to
invited you
achieve.
here today because I think you're interesting because I've always admired that you threw yourself in at such a
you.
young age. It's such a tough game. I mean, you guys have spent the last 20 minutes just giving us one tiny little sliver of the campaign war that I know went on that. I mean, it's a big deal and it takes tough people to do it. We get the opportunity to debate each other every couple of weeks on For the Record. You're a businesswoman, you're a conservative, you had the chutzpah to run twice now, once against the venerable Andrew Horvath and once against Noreen Virgin and Paul Miller and company. Why you saddle yourself with this guy's... I'm kidding. What? You're looking too comfortable over there. I had to throw
I
you
win
in.
some, I lose some.
You do.
No, you know what?
Yeah.
Lauren was my rock during that
Well,
thing,
he
and he
has
knew
a freaky genius with
he
this stuff.
does. He absolutely does.
You have a
I work
freaky
hard.
genius.
Yeah.
You do work hard, and you have a freaky genius of knowing what's going to be in the paper. But oh wait, that's because you put it there. I forgot.
Oh, there you go.
But Tara, I find you very interesting. So what's the future for you?
Well, not running in the near future.
Really?
That's one thing. Well, no, I think that that it's time for other people to come forward and
Really? Because
and
you've just
try
started
it
to
out.
build equity. And
Yeah, but this time, some people asked me if I was going to run in the federal election, and I've always been more interested in politics than federal politics.
provincial, you mean? Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
What did I say?
Political.
Oh, yeah,
Said you've been more
provincial.
interested in political
Love.
politics. That was
Yeah.
just, it's all the same.
Those kinds of politics.
I had to think sometimes. So I want to stay provincial. I've done it twice.
Yeah.
And haven't shown very well. I mean,
Would you run for council? 'Cause, you
at
know,
this
Lawrence
point,
says he wins some, he loses some.
Yeah, I
He's
know.
been
I
part of
know.
some council runs that have been successful.
yeah. At this point, I'm going to say no. I think
Yeah.
at one point I will run provincially again, but not in this election. Whereas this is the election I should be running in.
Why do you say that?
The polls, the conservatives, Tim Hudak, it's
you support
everything's-
Hudak?
Absolutely. I helped. Now, this is the thing. I helped John Tory on his run for the leadership, and he won. And John Tory and I have always been good together. And then,
But you sold him out.
well, even afterwards, we're okay. We're okay because he understands. At the end of the
He
day,
got
he
it.
knew.
He
He
got
knew.
it.
And then I
And you were
helped
hair,
out.
No.
and you're a hair. Yeah, he knew. He just was too
Well.
stubborn. You're a hair.
And then with Tim Hudak, I also helped him.
So, and you're a Harris site, as you said, and Tim Hudak was a Harris protege.
Yes,
in
he
some regard.
was.
So you support
It's-
Tim?
You know what? I don't think that we should be hiding from the fact that he was a Harrisite.
No, you can't.
No, you
Lauren?
can't.
Lauren, do you support Tim Hudak?
No.
Why not?
I'm underwhelmed with policy thus far,
Okay.
and I find him lacking.
So you two part ways on this.
we do part ways on this.
Tory, I thought he could have been Ontario's Kennedy. That, you know what, he came across as smarter than you, better than you, and I love that. I want my politicians to be.
Lauren, I saw Tory speak at a chamber.
hold on, Rob. Come to the mic, honey. We can't hear you.
No, I was going to say that we heard John Tory speak at a chamber event in Sarnia
Yes.
before the election, and we left and said, no, I don't know, this guy is a little bit.
You know what?
I don't
You
know.
didn't think John Tory could make it? This is before he ever declared.
Okay.
Because he spoke at a Chamber of Commerce event in London, and he was in front of a room. I was a Chamber of Commerce director or executive director at the time. So he's in a room full of the people who are running the organizations that support small business, right? And he was trashing the Ontario economy. He was saying stuff that, had the paper picked it up, would have been damaging to all of our work.
Yeah.
And I remember we said afterwards, "What the hell was that?"
He grew into the position of leader.
I'm just
he
saying, it wasn't natural. It didn't seem that way to us when we heard that speech.
Uh,
But he
you
was
know,
he's a businessman. You're right. He had a Kennedy-esque appeal. He was attractive, likable. Yeah, Richie Rich. He
You
had all
know,
the
when I lost in 2004,
yeah.
Tim Hudak was all over it. You know, he told me, get your feet back up again. You're gonna do it. But it was so odd. John Tory, all the way in Toronto somewhere, he wasn't even an elected member. He had just come to
Yeah.
help me twice.
He never
He
became
phoned.
one.
He
How ridiculous
he
is
phoned
that?
me the day after the election. He found my parents' phone number and phoned me.
Well, that's very sweet of him, but the guy couldn't
But
get
that's the
elected
type
in his
of
own
guy.
riding. The guy never was in the freaking legislature. John Tory, I respect his business achievements and
It
the
was
Richie
just-
Rich
it was-
appeal,
it was-
but the guy couldn't get elected. And why was he running your party? Why would you have a guy run your party who can't get elected?
Because he should have been elected.
What's that? Because
The last name, yeah. He deserved it, Laura.
Yeah, well-
no, as I said, he is someone that he had it all
You know who
going for
deserves
him,
it? You know who
but
deserves
then
it,
it
Tara?
just didn't
Is
come
someone
all together.
like you who does the hard work, who takes the
Thank
knocks,
you.
who fails in the first round, and that doesn't stop you,
Yeah, goes
gets
back
back
again.
in the fray, does it again, has to deal with a pathetic attempt at the provincial level. That's who should win. It's true.
Why, thank you,
Well,
Laura.
I mean it. You're much
you
more
go.
interesting to me than John Tory.
Shakes her fist.
So then you won't be. I can let John know that he won't be on the show.
Oh, I'll have him on the show just so he can tell me he hates me. It's all good. Thank you, Tara, for
Thank
being in the
you.
Lair.
No
It was
problem.
really interesting. I hope you run again.
Thank you.
Don't give it to someone. It's nobody else's turn. It's your turn. Take your turn again.
Okay.
With or without.
Chats in the Lair is a Power Group production. Visit us at powergroup.ca or laircast.com, or check us out on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.